Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile for you guys today. This time it's on Dark World. So I decided to give this deck yet another update. Not much has changed, but there are some significant differences that are, that actually just help my deck a lot more than I did on my last build, which to be fair, my last build was pretty good, but I found some cards that just were a little bit better, and yeah, figured I'd just share what I got with what I got for you guys this time, and yeah, let's get started. Alright, so the main deck is 40 cards, starting off with 2 copies of Grapha. Naturally, is going to be one of your best monsters, simply because when it's discarded, you get to pop a card your opponent controls. Well, actually, I think it only pops... Oh yeah, yeah, any card you want. Any card you want. And if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can look at one random card in your opponent's hand. Then if it was a monster, you can special summon it to your side of the field. That effect may not come up too much, but if it does, hey, kudos to you. Now, keep in mind, against the mirror match, this deck can be a little cancerous, so just hope you go second, because, yeah, if your opponent doesn't know you're on Dark Worlds as well, then, yeah, they're gonna have a hard time. But anyway, moving on, 2 copies of Rainbow over King of Dark World. So what this card does is that if it's discarded, you get to search out any level 5 or higher Dark World monster, in which case Silva is going to be your prime target, but if you already have Silva, then Grapha will be your next best choice. Also, they both Grapha and Rainbow have an effect, well, a summoning condition from the graveyard where you can bounce back any Dark World. Well, for Grapha, it can be any Dark World monster, where Rainbow, it has to be a level 7 or lower Dark World monster. But generally, like, if you have both of them, you can basically loop this effect constantly. And keep in mind, this does play under Abyss Dweller, so yeah, you can keep summoning them off of the graveyard as many times as you want. It's just so broken. Next, 3 copies of Snow. If it's discarded, you can search out any Dark World card. And of course, if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can then target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and then special summon that target. So yeah, it's not too bad. Next, 3 copies of Genta, which is probably one of the best cards in the entire deck too, because when you can just literally discard this, search out the Gates of Dark World, and if it's banished, you can, and while you control a Dark World card, and keep in mind this does count as with the field spell too, you can special summon this card. Of course, you can only special summon Genta once per turn, so yeah, Genta is pretty nice. Next, 2 copies of Silva. This basically enables you a sort of FTK, especially if you have Ceruli, which comes to our next card. If Silva's discarded, it special summons itself literally for free. And if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you get to rip 2 cards out of their hand, send them back to the bottom of their deck. And with Ceruli, you basically, when this card is discarded, you special summon it to your opponent's side of the field, and it then becomes their effect that triggers by a mandatory effect to discard a card you have in your hand. So that's basically how you do it. And with the changes I've made with the extra deck, I now have a way to kind of bounce back Ceruli and just kind of loop it around a little bit more. So yeah, it's nuts. 1 copy of Darkwing Zephyros the Elite, another great extender piece, and not to mention it bounces back cards you control, so yeah. Of course, it is once per duel effect, but Zephyros just enables a lot, so yeah, you'd be surprised. Alright, now for my danger package, because yeah, you gotta, since we are running Dark Worlds, you gotta run dangers with them. I still run 3 Nessie. Nessie is literally the best danger we have. Next, 2 copies of Bigfoot. Bigfoot's just good for monster removal. 2 Mothman. Since tier limits is not as good as it used to be, I'm not too worried about them getting any effects. So yeah, Danger Mothman, just a good way to kind of like draw you an extra card and discard another one. So basically Dark World dealings. 1 Thunderbird just to deal with back row, but sometimes it doesn't come up. For the other one-ofs, 1 Chupacabra. I know some people like to run it too. I think 1's just fine. 1 Jackalope and 1 Tsuchinoko. And yeah, that pretty much rounds up the dangers. Good card just to kind of like clear off like problematic monsters. 3 copies of Lava Golem. I do like to main deck it because A, it's a fiend, and B, it's a level 8 monster, which will be more relevant later on. But the cool thing about this is that Lava Golem just helps you out so much, especially because a lot of decks like to sit on 2 or more monsters. Against Kashtar, you generally want to get rid of their Arise Heart and their Shangira. Against Branded, well, depending on the build, if they're on Dragoon, you definitely want to clear out that Dragoon and definitely the Mirror Jade. Now, Mirror Jade's effect will still trigger, but if you can basically like OTK your opponent that same turn, it really shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, Lava Golem's just nuts. And plus, there are ways to kind of protect yourself from the Mirror Jade effect anyway, so yeah. Alright, so now we're moving on to spells. Of course, got to play 3 copies of the Gates of Dark World. This is probably your most key piece of, your key spell in the entire deck, simply because it draws you cards, it lets you discard fiend types to trigger more effects. So yeah, and not to mention not a hard once per turn. So yeah, Gates with Dark World is pretty nuts. Playing 3 copies of Trade-In, since we do run a lot of level 8s. Trade-In is simply just good for, just to, help you fix your hand and just like get some of your big bosses into the graveyard. I opted to play 2 copies of Triple T. Before I was running the Salamander Catalyzer, but then I was looking at some other builds. Some builds were running Allure Darkness, which is a great card considering that you're pretty much on all darks. But my theory with Triple T is that because we are on Ceruli, it does count as your opponent activated an effect. You basically make Triple T live, and you get to draw yourself 2 new cards. Or if you want, you could just rip another card out of your opponent's hand and just kind of go from there, just to like make sure that they don't get to play. So yeah, I think Triple T is just a little bit better than Allure Darkness in my opinion. So definitely give it a try. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. For the one-us, same as before, 1 Dark World Archives helps you draw more cards and discard more cards. Dark World Ascension, I know some people like to run this too. I did at 1.2, but I think 1's just fine considering it is searchable and it's recyclable too. So, but yeah, I like it because it gets you into the Graph of Fusion monster. Dark World Puppetry, an amazing card. It's basically a DD Crew, but in a form of a spell. So, and the fact that you also get to discard a card is nuts. And of course, card destruction. And like if you don't like your hand, basically both players have to discard their entire hands, and you get to get something better. And it's pretty broken when you have a bunch of dangers in your hand because you get to basically chain block a lot of stuff. So yeah, card destruction is pretty nice. All right, moving on to the extra deck. Running 2 copies of the Graph of Fusion. I just run 2 because in case my opponent decides to snipe one out of the extra deck from whether it's by a Kashtira player or that occasional True King Dino player. Yeah, you definitely just want to have some backups. 1 Muckracker, a great card. Just the fact that it's basically inherently Dark World support. If I had another one, I'd probably run 2, but I only have 1. 1 Akashic Magician. I know someone suggested this, considering that it does help you bounce back your Ceruli, so make sure it's to a zone that Akashic can point to. So yeah, Akashic Magician, pretty nice. I'm still on 1 copy of Dark. Dark's just really good for both the mirror match or just any other deck that's in a lot of dark. That's playing a lot of darks, like Branded, for example. Like if you just need extra materials to link off. So yeah, Dark is just one of those cards that can enable that. Plus, if it's destroyed, you get to search out any dark monster with 1,500 or less defense points from your deck to your hand, which we do have plenty of targets for. Another card that someone suggested, Nightmare Cerberus, considering that it's a good way just to like pop special summon monsters. So like if your opponent has something and it's co-linked to like a Akashic Magician, for example, you get to draw an additional card. And yeah, it's just really good. 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, I'm sorry, I was about to say Cerberus again. This time I opted to play 2 copies of Saryuja. Saryuja is really good because like it not only does it draw you 4 cards, and of course you have to place 3 back, but the point about Saryuja is that it fixes your handle. So like if you have like a bunch of bricks, but you're still able to go into Saryuja, you get to like basically like choose which cards go back to the deck and keep the cards you need. And the reason I'm up to 2, again, same reason with the Kashtira, I don't want them to snipe my only copies, so decided to bump it up to 2 and just, yeah, kind of go from there. And yeah, like, again, sorry, just a fantastic card. Lets you get an additional special summon too, so that's pretty nice. Still on Appaloosa. Appaloosa is like super easy to make in this deck. So like, if you can make it early on, just to ensure that, your opponent doesn't disrupt you with cards like Nibiru, which the deck can still technically play just fine with that under Nibiru, but yeah, you just want to make sure all your combos go off. Underworld Goddess, great way just to like problematic monsters, since you basically get to kaiju away one of your opponent's monsters to link into it. Yeah, it's pretty nice. And this with IP Masquerena is pretty busted. For my Xyz, still on Baguska. I was considering running Dugaris, but I decided to opt to play Abyss Dweller because there are still decks that do rely on their graveyard a little bit more. And plus, it's just not as risky as Dugaris, so that's the whole reason behind it. So like against Branded, this is pretty strong. Kashtira, not so much, but it can't come up. But generally, yeah, you mostly just want to stop like any graveyard reliant effects. Actually, funny enough, this hurts Dinosaur too, funny enough, but I don't see too many dinosaurs, thankfully. So, but against the right matchup, Abyss Dweller can be a game winner. And of course, I do have the Hope Harbinger as my main rank 8. Negates spells, so why not? Not to mention it can redirect attacks. So that's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, not much has changed with it really. If anything, it hasn't changed at all. It's 3 Denko Seka still. I'm still on 3 Chaos Hunter. Chaos Hunter is just pretty good. It actually shuts down Cashier significantly. Just make sure that they don't have any like other engine that can just run over it. Like I've seen different variants of Cashier. You'd be surprised. I've seen one with the Rescue Ace engine, which caught me off guard. I know the Sprite variant is like the most popular build, but yeah, this also hurts branded too. So yeah, oh, and not to mention it actually helps you out evenly matched because your opponent can't banish cards. Next up, 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Just a great going second tool. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. This is primarily for like trap tricks or any back row heavy strategy that like to protect their back row, like Labyrinth. So like, yeah, Cosmic Cyclone is just better because it banishes the cards. I know some people just say, why not run evenly matched? Well, I don't typically want to lose my battle phase, so that's the whole reason behind that. And 3 Skill Drain. I know in the OCG this just went to 1, so I'm expecting it to go back to 1 here too, but who knows. But for now, Skill Drain is still pretty good. Hurts a lot of strategies because the cool thing about Dark World is that their effects resolve in the graveyard, not on the field. So yeah, you could just have some big bodies and just start running over your opponent's monsters. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.